Neptune's Revenge by Janson Davies. Chapter 1. The Angry Blue Planet. They called her Nephira of the Deep, a sovereign of silence, ruler of the tempest spires beneath Neptune's cobalt oceans. Her people, the Thalzari, had once been revered for their mastery of gravitational harmonics and stormcraft. They sang to the void in tones that bent light, shaped tides, and whispered through the Kuiper winds. But reverence had faded. The inner worlds had grown loud. Mars, with its war-born dynasties and terraforming zealots, broadcast its conquests across the solar net. Jupiter's sky-born colossi, the Jovari, flaunted their storm-forged fleets and orbital arenas. Saturn's ring-dwellers, the Seraphim, spun glamour and prophecy into every transmission. Venus shimmered with allure, her cloud cities dripping with pheromantic intrigue. Even Uranus had its moment. The Auroliths, crystalline jesters of the tilted world, became a meme empire, their absurd rituals and inverted gravity dances a constant source of amusement. But Neptune, no one tuned in to the deep. Nephira watched as Pluto's outcasts, the Cryonids, were rediscovered. Once dismissed as relics, they now basked in attention. The humans sent probes, the inner worlds sent diplomats. The Cryonids were hailed as tragic, poetic survivors of their diminutive size. Nephira had once sheltered them. She had offered them orbit, refuge, silence. Now they ignored her calls. In the Hall of Tides, deep beneath the methane waves, Nephira convened her council. The Thalzari elders spoke in harmonic pulses, their voices trembling with restrained fury. "They forget the pact," murmured Elder Lonel. "They forget the price of silence." "They forget who held the outer dark," Nephira replied, her voice a low tremor. "Let them remember." She activated the deep array. Across the system, subtle shifts began. Triton's orbit wobbled. Comet paths bent. Gravitational tides whispered of change. The Cryonids felt it first, a pull, a longing, a call they could not resist. Pluto's ambassador, a frost-cloaked envoy named Seln, tried to resist. He sent messages to Mars, to Jupiter, to Earth. No one answered. Mars was too busy with its latest warcast. Jupiter was hosting the Cyclone Games. Venus was seducing a Terran delegation. Uranus was live-streaming a zero-gravity opera. And Neptune? Neptune was rising. Nephira did not send threats. She sent silence. A silence so vast it swallowed signals, bent satellites, and turned light to shadow. The Cryonids began to drift. Seln's final broadcast was a whisper. "She is calling us home." And then, nothing. The solar system stirred. Mars launched a probe. It vanished. Jupiter sent a storm ship. It returned, frozen and blind. Venus tried diplomacy. Her envoy dissolved in the deep. Uranus made a joke. No one laughed. Nephira stood at the edge of her world, watching the stars dim. She did not want their praise. She did not want their pity. She wanted their acknowledgement of Neptune's glory. And she would write it in their blood. Chapter 2. The Outer Offensive. The first wave hit the Martian moons. No warning, no declaration, just impact. Neptune's fleet, sleek, silent, and engineered for deep space assault, emerged from the shadow of the Kuiper belt. They'd been building for decades, hidden in the gravitational blind spots beyond Triton. No one had noticed. No one had cared. Now they would. Nephira, Supreme Commander of the Thalzari Outer Command, watched from the bridge of NSV Ice Storm, her flagship. She didn't speak. Her orders were embedded in the fleet's neural lattice. No broadcasts, no signals. Just synchronized destruction. Phobos fractured first. A kinetic lance tore through its equatorial ridge, sending debris into low orbit. Deimos followed, its mining stations vaporized by precision rail fire. Mars scrambled. The Red Sovereign, Trotel, deployed orbital defense platforms and launched interceptor wings from Olympus Mons. But Neptune's ships were built for silence and speed. They didn't dogfight. They struck and vanished like death-filled phantoms. Jupiter's storm fleet mobilized next. The Jovari deployed their dreadnoughts, massive fusion-powered carriers bristling with plasma arrays. They expected a frontal assault. They got orbital sabotage. Neptune's stealth corvettes slipped past the Jovian perimeter and detonated the fuel cores of 2 dry dock stations. The explosion lit up the upper atmosphere like a second sun. Thousands dead. No survivors. Venus tried diplomacy. Her cloud cities sent encrypted envoys. Neptune's fleet ignored them. One city, Aphros Prime, was targeted and burned. The strike was surgical, one railgun slug through the central reactor. The city became a graveyard. Uranus live-streamed a comedy sketch mocking Neptune's blue tantrum. The feed cut mid-transmission. Their orbital relay was gone. And Pluto was quiet. The Cryonids had already aligned with Neptune. Their ice-hardened skirmishers joined the assault, flanking the outer planets and disrupting supply chains. They knew the terrain. They knew the silence. Earth watched, hesitated, debated. Nephira didn't wait. She launched Phase 2. The Ice Storm and its sister ships, NSV Ice Scythe, NSV Ice Vesper, NSV Ice Null, accelerated toward the inner system. Their hulls shimmered with adaptive plating, invisible to most sensors. They didn't need to cloak. They were faster than detection. Mars prepared a counterstrike. Trotel's fleet met Neptune's vanguard in orbit over Cydonia. The battle lasted 6 hours. Mars lost 17 ships. Neptune lost 2. Jupiter deployed its Cyclone-class destroyers. They were powerful. They were loud. They were predictable. Neptune's fleet was quiet, precise, relentless. By the end of the cycle, 3 planets were burning. 2 moons were gone. 1 civilization had vanished. And Nephira, she was still advancing. Chapter 3. The Inner Line Breaks. Earth's orbital command was late to respond. By the time Neptune's fleet breached the Martian perimeter, the inner system was already compromised. Mars had lost 2 moons and half its orbital defense grid. Venus was bleeding atmosphere from targeted reactor strikes. Jupiter's dreadnoughts were scattered, forced into defensive formations around its moon colonies. Earth's high command convened in low orbit aboard the ISS Bastion. The mood was fractured. The Terran alliance had never faced a coordinated assault from the outer system. Neptune's tactics were surgical. No broadcasts, no demands, just precision strikes and rapid withdrawal. They weren't conquering. They were erasing millions of beings. Nephira's fleet advanced in 3 prongs. The Ice Storm line, heavy cruisers and railgun carriers, optimized for planetary bombardment. Their target, Mars and Venus. The Ice Null wing, stealth corvettes and orbital saboteurs, tasked with disabling communications and sensor arrays. The Cryonid flank, Pluto's skirmishers, fast and ice-armored, sweeping asteroid belts and disrupting supply routes. Mars launched a counter-offensive. Trotel's Iron Mantle fleet engaged the Ice Storm line over the Cimmerian expanse. The battle was brutal. Kinetic slugs, plasma bursts, hulls torn open in silence. Mars lost 14 ships. Neptune lost 5. The Ice Storm line kept moving. Venus deployed atmospheric drones and cloud-based rail platforms. They managed to cripple 1 Neptune cruiser, NSV Ice Vesper. But the retaliation was swift. A coordinated barrage from 3 Neptune destroyers collapsed Aphros Prime's orbital ring. Debris rained down for hours. Jupiter's storm fleet regrouped near Europa. They launched a trap, baiting Neptune's crionid flank into a gravity well. It worked. 2 skirmisher wings were crushed, but the victory was short-lived. Neptune's ice null wing had already breached Europa's defense grid. The moon went dark. Earth scrambled to deploy its orbital defense net. The Bastion coordinated interceptor wings, drone swarms, and railgun satellites. But Neptune's fleet didn't approach directly. They began targeting Earth's Lagrange points, chokeholds for logistics and orbital stability. The first strike hit L4. A Neptune corvette, NSV Ice Scythe, slipped past Earth's sensor net and detonated a kinetic warhead inside the cargo ring. Thousands of tons of equipment vaporized. The shockwave crippled 2 orbital elevators. Earth retaliated. The Bastion launched a full barrage, rail slugs, drone swarms, EMP bursts. They managed to destroy NSV Ice Scythe and damage 2 cruisers. But Nephira didn't flinch. She deployed NSV Ice Storm into high orbit over Earth. No stealth, no retreat, just presence. The message was clear. You are not safe. We are here. Chapter 4. Earthfall Protocol. Earth's orbital grid was bleeding. The NSV Ice Storm held position over the equator, flanked by 2 Neptune cruisers and a swarm of crionid skirmishers. Their formation was tight, disciplined, and terrifyingly quiet. No broadcasts, no demands, just a slow, deliberate descent into Earth's kill zone. The ISS Bastion, Earth's command carrier, scrambled its remaining interceptor wings. The Terran alliance had burned through half its drone reserves in the Lagrange skirmishes. Now, with Neptune's fleet pressing into low orbit, they had no choice but to deploy manned squadrons. Commander Richter led the Vanguard 6 Wing, a mix of aging rail fighters and retrofitted orbital bombers. Their mission: intercept and disable NSV Ice Storm before it reached bombardment altitude. They launched from the Pacific Arc, climbing fast through the upper atmosphere. Neptune's fleet didn't flinch. The Ice Storm's escort cruisers opened fire with rail slugs, silent, hypersonic, and brutally accurate. One bomber disintegrated mid-ascent, another lost its stabilizers and spiraled into the ocean. Richter pushed through. Her wing reached firing range and launched a coordinated barrage. Kinetic lances, EMP bursts, plasma torpedoes. The Ice Storm absorbed the damage, its adaptive hull shifting to deflect impact vectors. It didn't fire back. It didn't need to. The Ice Storm's payload was already deploying. 6 orbital drop pods detached from its undercarriage, each the size of a city block. They didn't carry troops. They carried mass drivers, planetary bombardment platforms designed to punch through crust and vaporize infrastructure. Earth's defense grid scrambled to intercept. Rail satellites fired. Drone swarms collided. 2 pods were destroyed mid-descent. 4 made it through. The first struck the Andes, the second hit the outskirts of Nairobi, the third buried itself in the Siberian tundra. The fourth landed in the Pacific Trench, each activated within minutes. Shockwaves rippled across continents, communications blacked out. Orbital feeds went dark. The Terran alliance lost contact with 7 major cities. And still, Nephira didn't speak. She watched from the Ice Storm's bridge, her fleet holding formation. No retreat, no escalation, just presence. Earth launched its final countermeasure, Project Earthfall, a classified railgun platform buried beneath Antarctica, designed for planetary-scale retaliation. It fired once, an ultra-dense slug aimed directly at NSV Ice Storm. It hit. The Ice Storm's hull fractured, its orbit destabilized. It began to fall, but Nephira had already transferred command to NSV Ice Null, her secondary flagship. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Chapter 5. The Terran Gambit. The ice storm was falling. Earth's railgun strike had fractured its hull, scattering debris across the upper atmosphere. But Neptune's fleet didn't flinch. NSV Ice Null assumed command, repositioning the cruisers into a tighter formation. The bombardment paused, but only briefly. Earth had minutes to respond. Commander Richter limped her damaged fighter back to the ISS Bastion, trailing plasma and shrapnel. Her wing was gone, her fuel was low, but her resolve was intact. The Terran alliance was splintered, communications were patchy, orbital infrastructure was compromised, but Richter didn't wait for orders. She issued her own. Patch me into every surviving command node. We're not retreating. We're not negotiating. We're going to make them bleed. Across Earth's orbital grid, scattered units responded. Civilian engineers rerouted power from collapsed elevators to rail platforms. Retired pilots climbed into museum-grade fighters. Drone operators repurposed agricultural bots into kamikaze interceptors. It wasn't elegant. It was human. The first coordinated strike hit NSV Ice Null's flank. A swarm of retrofitted drones overloaded its point defense grid, allowing a Terran bomber to punch through and cripple its port stabilizer. The ship listed venting atmosphere. Neptune's fleet adjusted, but Earth had momentum. In low orbit, the Bastion deployed a new weapon, Project Gorgon, a kinetic dispersal array designed for asteroid mining, now repurposed for ship-to-ship combat. It fired a cloud of hyperdense shards into Neptune's formation. One cruiser lost its engine array, another spun out of formation. Richter led a second wave, this time with backup. Fighters from Brazil, India, and the African Union joined the assault. They didn't match Neptune's tech. They didn't need to. They overwhelmed it. Neptune's fleet began to fracture, not from firepower, but from unpredictability. Human tactics were erratic, improvisational, suicidal. Neptune's neural lattice couldn't adapt fast enough. On Mars, Trotel's surviving fleet reactivated and launched a flanking maneuver, catching the Cryanid skirmishers between orbital debris fields. The Jovari storm fleet, battered but intact, deployed plasma nets to trap Neptune's retreating corvettes. Even Uranus joined in, deploying a gravity inverter that destabilized Neptune's orbital path. It wasn't meant for combat. It worked anyway. Nephira watched from the edge of the system. She hadn't expected this. Humanity wasn't unified, it wasn't efficient, it wasn't clean, but it was relentless. And now, it was winning. Chapter 6. The Line Holds. The ice storm was gone, but its shadow lingered. Chunks of its hull still burned through Earth's atmosphere, streaking across the sky like falling gods. The Pacific Trench was boiling. Nairobi was dark. The Andes were gone. But Earth was still standing. Commander Richter didn't wait for orders. She had become the de facto leader of the Terran counteroffensive, coordinating fractured fleets, orbital batteries, and civilian resistance cells from the battered ISS Bastion. Her voice, hoarse, clipped, unrelenting, was the only constant in a system unraveling. Neptune's fleet is regrouping at L2. We hit them now or we lose the belt. The Bastion's tactical display flickered with red arcs, Neptune's remaining cruisers, Cryanid skirmishers, and a new signature, NSV Ice Vindicator, a siege-class dreadnought that had yet to fire a shot. Mars answered first. Trotel's Iron Mantle fleet, bloodied but intact, committed 3 carriers and a dozen interceptors. Jupiter followed, sending 2 Cyclone-class destroyers and a mobile plasma rig. Even Venus, still reeling from orbital strikes, launched a stealth corvette wing from the Cloud Cities. For the first time in the war, the inner worlds moved as one. The battle at L2 was chaos. Neptune's fleet held the high ground, anchored by the Ice Vindicator's gravitational stabilizers. Earth's forces came in low, using the moon's shadow to mask their approach. Richter led the first wave, her fighter patched with scavenged plating, her HUD flickering with static. The opening salvo was brutal. Neptune's cruisers opened with rail fire, shredding 2 Martian bombers and a Jovian rig. But Earth's swarm tactics overwhelmed their targeting systems. Richter's wing broke through the perimeter and landed a direct hit on a Crionid command ship. It split in half, venting frozen bodies into the void. The Vindicator responded. Its main cannon fired once, an antimatter lance that vaporized a Terran carrier and cracked the lunar surface. The shockwave knocked out comms across the fleet. But Richter had planned for that. She switched to analog. Morse pulses, pre-programmed maneuvers, old tech, human technology. The fleet adapted. Venusian corvettes flanked the Ice Vindicator's blind spot, disabling its stabilizers. Martian interceptors dove into its hangar bay, detonating inside. Richter herself led the final run, her fighter trailing smoke, her weapons depleted. She rammed the bridge. The Ice Vindicator died in silence. Neptune's fleet fractured. Some ships fled. Others fought to the last. Earth's forces didn't pursue. They held position, guns hot, waiting for the next wave. But it didn't come. For the first time in weeks, the system was quiet. Not safe, but quiet. Chapter 7. The System Reboots. The silence after L2 didn't last. Neptune's fleet had fractured, but it hadn't retreated. Nephira had pulled her remaining assets into deep orbit, beyond Saturn's reach, regrouping near the Kuiper fringe. She wasn't done. She was recalibrating. Earth knew it. Commander Richter, now operating from a mobile command rig in lunar orbit, convened the first unified war council in solar history. Representatives from Mars, Jupiter, Venus, and even Uranus joined via encrypted relay. No ceremony, no politics, just tactical urgency. "We've stopped her advance," Richter said. "Now we take the fight outward." The Terran Alliance launched Operation Reboot, a coordinated campaign to reclaim orbital lanes, re-establish planetary defense grids, and push Neptune's forces back into the outer dark. Mars led the charge. Trotel's Iron Mantle fleet deployed siege platforms along the asteroid belt, converting mining rigs into long-range artillery. They targeted Neptune's supply lines, Crionid skiffs ferrying munitions and fuel from Pluto's shadow. The first barrage crippled 3 transports. The second wiped out a mobile repair station. Jupiter followed with brute force. The Jovari storm fleet deployed fusion barges to clear orbital debris and reassert control over Europa and Ganymede. Their destroyers, once scattered, now moved in formation, tight, fast, and lethal. Venus played support. Her cloud cities, still scarred from Neptune's strikes, became refit hubs for damaged ships. Engineers worked around the clock, retrofitting civilian vessels into combat-ready corvettes. Venusian stealth tech gave Earth's fleet a new edge, silent, agile, and hard to track. Even Uranus contributed. The Auroliths, long dismissed as comic relief, deployed gravity disruptors that destabilized Neptune's orbital staging zones. Their tech was erratic, unpredictable, and devastating. Earth, meanwhile, became the nerve center. Richter oversaw fleet coordination, logistics, and orbital defense. She authorized the launch of ISS Helix, a mobile command carrier equipped with adaptive AI and long-range rail arrays. It became the flagship of the counteroffensive. The push began. Neptune's remaining cruisers were hunted across the belt. Crionid skirmishers were intercepted and dismantled. Pluto's outposts were isolated, their signals jammed. But Nephira wasn't idle. She deployed NSV Isoclips, a deep space carrier designed for long-range strikes and orbital disruption. It didn't engage directly. It seeded the outer system with mines, decoys, and kinetic traps, forcing the Alliance to slow, recalibrate, and bleed resources. Richter responded with asymmetry. She authorized Black Ice, a covert wing of Terran pilots trained for deep space sabotage. Their mission: infiltrate Neptune's staging zones, disable Eclipse's launch bays, and extract intel on Nephira's next move. They launched from Titan. They didn't all return, but they succeeded. The Ice Eclipse was crippled, its launch bays offline, its command AI corrupted, and with that the tide shifted. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was winning. Chapter 8. The Drop. They didn't come from orbit, they came from beneath it. Neptune's final assault began with a seismic anomaly off the coast of Greenland. Earth's sensors flagged it as tectonic drift until the ice cracked and a column of alloyed steel rose from the ocean floor, a hidden drop pod silo, pre-deployed, pre-programmed. Nephira had planned this years ago. Within hours, 12 pods launched from submerged silos across the globe: Greenland, Mariana Trench, Weddell Sea, Siberian Shelf. Each carried a platoon of cryonid ground units, blue-skinned biomechanical infantry bred for cold, silence, and planetary disruption. They didn't speak, they didn't broadcast, they landed and began to dig. Their objective wasn't conquest, it was destabilization. In Greenland, cryonid engineers tunneled into geothermal veins, overloading local grids and triggering controlled collapses. In Siberia, they targeted satellite uplinks and railgun relays. In the Pacific, they seeded the trench with seismic charges. Earth scrambled. Commander Richter rerouted orbital assets to track the drop zones. The ISS Helix deployed atmospheric drones and recon fighters. Ground forces mobilized, special ops units, militia coalitions, even civilian resistance cells. The first engagement happened in the ruins of Nairobi. A cryonid platoon breached the city perimeter, targeting a fusion relay hub. Terran infantry, under-equipped and outnumbered, held the line for 6 hours. They used scavenged railguns, improvised explosives, and drone-assisted targeting. They won. Barely. In Greenland, a joint Martian-Earth strike team deployed via suborbital drop. They engaged cryonid engineers in the ice tunnels, using thermal lances and sonic disruptors. The battle was claustrophobic, brutal, and short. The tunnels collapsed. The cryonids were buried, but not all pods were intercepted. In the Mariana Trench, seismic charges detonated. A tsunami hit the western Pacific coast. Communications blacked out. Orbital feeds went dark. Richter made the call. She authorized Ground Protocol 0, a full planetary sweep using orbital drones, rail satellites, and kinetic bombardment. No precision, no diplomacy, just eradication. Within 48 hours, 9 of the 12 cryonid units were neutralized. 3 remained. 1 in the Amazon basin, 1 beneath the Antarctic ice, 1 moving toward the ruins of the Andes. Richter deployed everything. The final engagement happened in the shadow of the Andes crater. Cryonid command units had begun assembling a planetary disruptor, an array designed to fracture Earth's crust and render it uninhabitable. Terran forces arrived first. Jovian stormtroopers, Venusian saboteurs, Martian artillery, and Richter. She led the final charge herself. The battle lasted 13 minutes. The disruptor was destroyed. The cryonids were gone. And Earth held. Chapter 9. The Last Signal. The final cryonid unit was neutralized in the Andes crater. Earth's orbital grid was stabilizing. Mars had reclaimed its moons. Jupiter's storm fleet patrolled the belt. Venusian engineers were rebuilding cloud infrastructure. Even Uranus had deployed a permanent orbital relay, half joke, half triumph. But Neptune wasn't finished. From the edge of the system, a signal pulsed. Encrypted, ancient, non-terrestrial. It wasn't a call for help, it was a warning. Commander Richter, now operating from the ISS Helix in high Earth orbit, decoded the transmission. It wasn't from Nephira. It was from a deep space relay buried in Triton's crust, activated only in the event of systemic failure. The message was clear. If Neptune falls, the galaxy will be destroyed. Richter convened the War Council. The inner worlds debated. Was this a bluff? A failsafe? A beacon? Mars wanted to strike Triton. Jupiter advised caution. Venus proposed containment. Uranus live-streamed a musical reenactment. Richter made the call. She launched a recon probe, unarmed, silent, fast. It reached Triton in 6 days. The data it returned was incomplete, corrupted, and terrifying. Beneath Triton's surface was a vault. Inside, a fleet. Dormant. Ancient. Not Crionid. Not Thalzari. Something older. Richter didn't broadcast the findings. She classified them, buried them. She knew the system wasn't ready for another war. Instead, she issued a final directive. No one touches Triton. And for the first time in solar history, every planet agreed. Epilogue. The quiet between storms. The war was over. Neptune's fleet was shattered. Nephira was missing, presumed dead, lost in the outer dark. The Cryonids were scattered. Earth was rebuilding. But the system had changed. Mars and Jupiter formed a joint defense pact. Venus became the diplomatic hub. Uranus, unexpectedly, emerged as a cultural powerhouse, its absurdity now a symbol of resilience. Earth didn't claim victory, it claimed responsibility. Commander Richter declined promotion. She returned to the surface, settling in the ruins of Nairobi, helping rebuild the fusion grid she once defended. Her name became legend, not for heroism, but for clarity. She had seen the edge, she had held the line, and she knew it would come again. In the Kuiper dark, Triton remained silent. But silence was never safe. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.